Music's okay when there's more ideas than solos. I feel personally attacked.
Welcome back to Dastardly Hamster. I'm here with Mika. She has just come back from maternity leave. She just finished listening to a Dead Kennedy song, which she likes, which means I get to show her another one. If she likes this one, I get to show her another one after that. So today, we're taking a little bit of a risk. I'm showing you a song that's not like one of their most popular songs, but it is a song that I want to show to you because it's a song where they talk about metal. A little bit of background about, I think, punk musicians in general, is that pretty much every punk band has a song that is self-critical of the punk scene. And this is something I really appreciate about punk because it's an encouragement to look inside and look at what they can do better, how they can actually follow the values that they claim to hold. And so we've seen a lot of that in terms of like Dead Kennedys, one of their other songs talks about like Nazis within the punk movement and like we need to get them out, right? Don't accept that these people are allowed in. And then there was like the Riot Girl movement, which was about sexism within the movements, right? And these are like really important things that all happen. It's one thing I really appreciate about punk rock is just like that self-critique. This song critiques both the punk and the metal movements. I don't know much about the metal movements, so this might speak to you in a way it doesn't speak to me. But I wanted to show it to you because I think it is relevant. It's something that we can both sort of discuss. And it's also a song that was referenced in a song you've already listened to. So Propagandi's Back to the Motor League referenced this song.
Yes, I remember.
Okay, so people who have not listened to that reaction, you can check out Mika's reaction to that song as well. So this song is called Chickenshit. What are your expectations going into this?
I guess I'm expecting more of that sort of classic punk sound, which is nice. And I will say, I don't know when this was written, but the metal scene was very different at that time.
This song, 1986.
Yeah, so it was a very different world of metal, more hair metal, you know, sort of glam metal, a lot of pro-consumerist type of look, if not necessarily their messaging. You know, there were a lot of pretty girls and stuff dancing in their videos. You know, it wasn't that sort of flannel shirt, gruff metal yet. So I could see why they might lump all that together.
I will also say that the style of this song is very unconventional for the Dead Kennedys as well. You'll notice it is 6 minutes. It is a much slower song. It's slow and then fast. Yeah, I would say it's quite different from what they usually write. So again, I'm taking a bit of a risk here. If you'd like to suggest some songs for us to react to, you can donate to us on Patreon or buy me a coffee. There are options for a guaranteed reaction or to enter your monthly suggestions into a draw. Monthly members will get access to our reactions up to a month early.
Dead, it just deserves to die when it becomes another stale cartoon. A closed-minded, self-centered social club. Ideas don't matter, it's who you know. If the music's gotten boring, it's because of the people who want everyone to sound the same. Who drive the bright people out of our so-called scene till all that's left is just a meaningless fad.
What's interesting about this is it sounds pretty 60s to me.
That's probably going to change really quick.
Okay, but there's also like an element where it sort of drones on, almost like a Gregorian chant or like Bob Dylan. So I think that sort of gets across the point of what they're saying of like everyone sounds the same, like every note sounds the same. The lyrics are very clear. Yeah. There's no metaphor.
Right. Can't mistake this as anything but hard-hitted critique.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like they read out an opinion piece out of the newspaper.
I got the darkness, taking care of what we are. Is this a state of mind? Or just another label? The giant pop of an alternative has become a democracy. A haircut and a lifestyle. Imagine this is at 35. Who needs a scene, get the love and the feel? Judge everything by that press appeal. Who played last night? I don't know, I forgot. But diving off the stage was a lot of fun. So we got the please, the message please. So we got the please, the message please. Like the same on the stage, again and again. Chicken Conformist like your parents.
All right, so that was definitely punk. I like this. Imagine Sid Vicious at 35. Was he still alive at this point?
He was long dead. 1979.
Okay. Yeah, I like this. Who played last night? I don't know. I forgot. But diving off the stage was a lot of fun. So it's all become about the scene, about having fun, and they've lost sight of the message, lost sight of the meaning. So that's interesting. Yeah, and all that's left is just a meaningless fad.
What's ripped us apart even more than drugs are the thieves and the goddamn liars, ripping people off when they share their stuff. When someone falls, are there any friends? Harder core than thou for a year or two, then it's time to get a real job. Others stay home, it's no fun to go out when the gates are wrecked by gangs and thugs. When the thugs form bands, look who gets record deals. The New York metal labels looking to scam. Who signed the most racist, queer bashing bands they could find to make a buck? They're the kids up for war.
Yeah, I was hoping you would stop there.
So what I find interesting here is getting into the minutia of the industry and the scene of the time. It's interesting to know this sort of level of detail. There's thieves going on. I don't know if it looks like maybe thieves of material instead of like items, like people's song styles or something. I do enjoy this harder core than thou for a year or two, then it's time to get a real job. Which I will say I feel a bit because, in my teens, I wasn't like quite goth, but a little bit of like skater goth with my piercings and wearing all black and stuff like that. A lot of makeup and stuff. And then I had to get a real job. And suddenly, I was taking out my bigger nose ring, changing my makeup. I had to tone down my look quite a bit to go out into the working world. So talking about how people are staying home and it's no fun to go out, which, sort of becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more violent things get, the smaller your audience is going to get.
Now, they have a pointed critique of metal labels here.
Yeah, New York metal labels. It doesn't really look like they're criticizing metal. It's a metal labels, right?
Oh, they'll criticize metal. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
It's coming. They are talking about the bands they're signing. So it says who signed the most racist, queer-bashing bands they can find. This is what I love about the Dead Kennedys. This is 1986, and they're talking about homophobia in the scene. That's pretty cool that they were already talking about this. Like how many other bands would have even mentioned it, right? So I don't know. Yeah. I really admire them for that. And racism too, obviously. Sorry, not to put one before the other, but like back then, a lot of people were very, very anti-gay. So it was even more unlikely that anyone would speak about it.
I think there was the AIDS crisis during this time as well.
Right.
Signing up controversial bands specifically for the controversy, make a buck, revving kids up for war, for whatever can get people spending money. That's what we're gonna do, even if it causes them harm.
Only it's not the gang approval. Unity is bullshit. When it's under someone's fast food, or it's a common cause. Too many facts and sacred talk in themselves. Agree with us on everything, or we won't have with anything. The kind of attitude that makes us sprinkle white. Guess who's laughing? One will be close. When we're all my babies, who I guess among ourselves. So we got the police, the president, please. So we got the police, the president, please. Like the same old mistake again and again.
Yeah, I like this part. Unity is bullshit when it's under someone's fat boot. That illusion of working together, but when it's controlled by somebody, then what is even mean to work together. Too many factions safely sulk in their shells. So that's something that's much worse now with the internet, algorithms, and everything on demand, which has a lot of benefits, but it also means a lot of fracturing of groups. And agree with us on everything or we won't help with anything. That is also something that I think has gotten worse.
I agree.
Purity tests and people needing to agree on every single issue. And if you disagree on any one of them, you're a horrible person and you're kicked out of the in-group. That's something that I think smaller and smaller tents is a recipe for fracturing of society.
Funny old rock and roll attitude's back. It's competition, man. We wanna break big. Who needs friends when the money's good? That's right, the 70s are back. Cock rock metal's like a bad laxative. It just don't move me, you know. The music's okay when there's more ideas than solos. Do we really need the attitude too?
So I'm assuming this is what you were talking about when criticizing the metal and rock scene.
Yeah, I mean, there's still more. Don't get me wrong, but yeah,
Yeah, so definitely in the 70s, late 60s and 70s, rock and metal were all the rage. The artists had immense power and influence, but they still needed to cater to the labels and distributors because back then you couldn't just put something out on the internet, right? Cock rock? I don't know what that is, and I don't want to. I do not want to Google this.
it might just mean very gendered rock, like mostly male dominated. That's my guess. I could be wrong.
A lot of music was male dominated at the time. Music's okay when there's more ideas than solos. I feel personally attacked.
This is something that I find funny because me being a punk fan, I recognize that I'm probably very wrong about this, but my impression of metal had always been that they put guitar work over messaging and actually saying things that, I felt spoke to me that were important, world issues, that sort of thing. Now, again, I recognize that's probably not a sweeping thing that you can just say, but that was my impression anyway. So that's why I find that line kind of funny.
One of the things I like about metal is that often it will have important messages and ideas, but I also, sometimes a song can just be fun, and sometimes I don't need to have like a super deep messaging. Sometimes I just want a cool solo.
Getting danced into quickly as my family disappoints me. Statements lose the sex of praise. Oh, it's all you can think of. Gospel is just another word for lack of ideas. Maybe what we need are more tools under the bridge. Will the metalheads finally learn something? Will we punch away the education? No one's ever heard the best ones say, but we dare oppress. The jury don't be rehashing the sticks of the past. So we got to please, the pressure to please. So we got to please, the pressure to please. Like the same old mistakes again and again. Chickenshit, conformist like your parents.
All right. Same old stupid sexist lyrics or is Satan all you can think of. So just chasing after controversy because they're unoriginal and they're like, whatever, let's just slap a pentagram on there and call it a day.
That was also my impression of metal. And again, I could be very wrong, but a lot of it I thought was just like Satanist. And again, maybe that's not the case at all, but
Yeah, I mean, there's not an insignificant number of bands that will just do something controversial just to be different, try to catch people's attention. Which, at the same time, that's how people get really famous, right? Or like had to in the past for sure. I mean, like we've been reacting to Bandmate, and their gimmick is wearing band outfits, right? So it's like it's anything to catch attention. And at the time, sometimes people would just look at album covers and say, oh, am I going to listen to this? Am I going to listen to this? To a certain extent, it was like branding. If you want to hear this type of sound, look for the Satanist imagery.
And then it talks about sexist lyrics as well, which, to be fair, like, was also in the punk scene. But, like, again, I'm glad that this was being called out at the time. And not just these scenes either, just like music in general. An extremely sexist industry. I'm glad that we're at least starting to talk about these things, even if we haven't seen maybe all the changes.
Crossover is just another word for lack of ideas. I'd be interested to know what were the big crossovers at the time that they would have been referring to. Or anybody would like to comment on what they were referring to in terms of crossover? We would be interested to know. I'm also curious about what they mean by maybe what we need are more trolls under the bridge, because these days troll means something very specific. So I'd be interested to know what they were referring to at the time.
Yeah, like troll probably didn't have the same connotations it does today.
Somebody who hid under a bridge and they were ugly and they made you either answer questions or something, or like do a task maybe.
What about these final lines? I'm actually not sure what these two mean next to each other.
Yeah, I don't know either. You know, the punks throw away their education could mean like kind of calling them like suburban kids. Yeah, I don't know about the Metalheads reference. I guess Metalheads were maybe not seen as intelligent at the time. These days, they're generally seen as one of the more like information dense types of music.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. We can't grow and we won't criticize ourselves. The 60s were a failure, the 70s are stuck. As the clock ticks, we dig the same hole. Music scenes ain't real life, don't get rid of the fog. Won't eliminate rape or bring down the bank. Any kind of real change takes some time and work to change the channels on a TV set. So why are we so eager to please? The pressure decrease, so eager to please. The pressure decrease, like the same old mistakes again and again. Chicken for us like your parents.
All right, so the more things change, the more they stay the same. We can't grow when we won't criticize ourselves, so self-reflection is important to evolution and advancement. The 60s weren't all failure, it's the 70s that stunk. I do think that's interesting. There were so many social movements and everything in the 60s. I guess it, especially at the time, probably felt like things stalled in the 70s. And, you know, the pendulum swings back.
Like, there was so many assassinations that happened at the end of the 60s. I think it really took away a lot of people's like internal motivations.
Yeah, and there was also a lot of distractions. I know there was a big economic crisis in the 70s. Yeah, it probably felt like things were backsliding, and if this was in 86, that would have been during the Reagan era, so things would have looked very like they were going in the wrong direction, and they were. Music scenes ain't real life. They won't get rid of the bomb, won't eliminate all of these bad things. Any kind of real change takes more time and work than changing channels on a TV set, and I think that's really an important thing for a lot of people to grapple with. Music and art can be really important catalysts for action. They can help bring like-minded people together, shape opinions, distribute important information and worldviews, but they are in themselves not action. You need to educate yourself, you need to learn, you need to hear different opinions, and then you need to go out and create change. So rock out to your favorite artists, listen to protest music, watch and listen and absorb and give them your money, but that's not really what's going to change anything. You gotta do stuff. Good. No, I really enjoyed analyzing that. I love being able to go through line by line because there wasn't a lot of metaphors. It was more, I think the bigger challenge was trying to think of the historical context, which was all before I was born. I think it's really interesting to get into that level of detail about the industry and having it be so dense with a message. Not a whole lot of repetition except for the chorus, which was like so fast. Yeah, it really kind of felt like they wrote an essay and just read it really fast to music. That's exactly what I would expect from punk. They sounded exactly like the stereotypical punk that I imagine in my head. Their message is exactly what I would expect and important for people to hear.
So what do you rate this?
I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5 hipsters.
Yay! I'm so happy. It's so important, and I think it affects both of us. It's talking about both of the scenes that we're involved in. It's talking about how can we make things better, right? And it was released in 1986, right? So hopefully things have gotten better or people feel that way. Some ways it has, maybe some ways it hasn't. Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that self-critique has helped to improve, especially when it comes to like bigotry within the movements. I also give this a 5 out of 5. I love this song so much. I think it's so important.
Thank you for showing me that song. I feel happy to have heard it. It feels like a piece of history, not just for the fact that it exists, but everything that they're talking about, you know, the little time capsule.
That's it for us, Hamstars. Spin your wheel down to that subscribe button.
And give us a dastardly thumbs up.